All right. Shalom, y'all. Shalom. Got a good lesson for you today. We're talking about how to fight the good fight. That's what we're going to be discussing today. And, you know, something I talk about a lot on this channel is, really getting down to the essence and the essentials of spiritual growth, spiritual development. Um, the name of this channel is Spiritual Combat because that's what this thing is. It's spiritual combat. Um, so, what is you hear the Bible verse, fight the good fight. You hear a lot of Bible verses about that make analogies to warfare, fighting, battle, soldiers, stuff like that. It's all through the word. One of my favorite is be strong and of good courage. Um, it's critical that we fight. But what I find is there is a lot of deception. There is a lot of, I would say, a better word to use is better, that would more accurately address what I'm talking about, is there's I guess, a lack of understanding of how to fight the good fight. And from a strategic standpoint and also just from a practical standpoint. Um, I'm gonna read a Bible verse and I'm gonna show you how people you know, they miss it. Okay, let me see. I'm gonna find a good one. Um, Philippians chapter 4, verse 13 is a good Bible verse. Okay. And Philippians chapter 4, verse 13 says, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. Okay. And this is a well known verse. You hear it quoted. But I'm going to tell you the way a lot of times people, and it might even be a subconscious misunderstanding of it, you got to really read through this. It's saying, I can do all things through Christ. And what does Christ do? He strengthens you. But a lot of people, if you watch the way they operate when they're in spiritual warfare, when they're in spiritual combat, when they're fighting, whatever it might be, when they're trying to die to self, if you look at the way they operate, they're trying to let Christ do all things through them and strengthen them. You see what I'm saying? And the key point I'm making there is that we there is work we have to do. That's why I always go to uh, Joshua chapter 1, and you know, if you read through there, you are literally watching how the Most High works and your role in the warfare and his role. You know what I'm saying? And the Most High, if the Most High tells you this is what the outcome's gonna be, okay? If the Most High tells you that, it's your job to believe that that's gonna be the outcome and work accordingly. But a lot of people have kind of a Disney genie mindset when it comes to this word. And oh, I'm gonna just do this. I'm a I'm going to jack my state up so I feel good and feel encouraged. But, I'm not going to get in here. I'm not going to grind out. I'm not going to put the work in. I'm not going to do my part. And, that's not the way it works. And the question to ask yourself, what are you like when you're at war? What are you like when you're under attack? When you're not feeling good, how are you operating? Are you still locked into the word? Are you obedient to what the word says when things aren't going your way and when you're not feeling good? When you're out on the battlefield, who are you? You see what I'm saying? And this is where you separate the real from the fake. When the pressure's on, you know, nobody's around. It's you and the temptation. It's you and whatever you're going through or whatever you're dealing with. How are you operating? How are you moving? It's easy to be strong, look strong, and be encouraged and all this, on the Shabbat when you're around the saints. But how are you when you're out there on the battlefield, when you're at war, when the bullets are flying? You see what I'm saying? This is how you know who you are. Why? Because gold is tried in the fire, and acceptable men in a furnace of affliction. You see what I'm saying? So it's easy to be out there, when everything's good and you're in a super positive environment and you're not under attack. You see what I'm saying? When, like, I think I was watching this thing. I think it was Jocko who was saying it, or it was Laith Babb. That's another guy who's on Jocko's podcast sometimes that he works with or whatever. But anyway, these guys were they were Navy SEALs, and the guy Laith Babb, I've played it on here multiple times where this guy's talking, and he's just talking about how when you uh, like to people who haven't gone through BUDS, which is that hell week course that they go through to qualify to be a SEAL, whatever. He was saying to the people who have not went through that, it's a big deal. But once you get through that and you get to a SEAL team or whatever, everybody's been through it, is less than nothing. And then he says, the big thing then is just the training that they do in the SEAL teams. Once they get through that training, that's a big deal. But then he talked about how he had done all this training and how intense his training was, even above what the BUDS thing, the Hell Week, even above that. Like, his training was super intense. And then he talked about going to the Middle East, and he was out there on a mission or whatever, and a bomb went off, an IED went off right near him, and then shooting broke out. And he talks about the intensity of that warfare and how all the training, he understood what once he was in that combat, that level of combat. And the way he described it, a large IED, like a large car bomb or whatever, went off near him. And he was like, boof, he could feel the concussion hit. And then they were shooting at him. And he talked about how the bullets hitting the concrete near him, and the concrete like this splitting off, and just the intensity of that. was like, it was mind blowing. And he was saying like he understood what the training was trying to prepare him for, but it couldn't compare to the intensity of actually being in combat, you know? And yeah, and that is how it is when it comes to spiritual warfare. You know, you're studying, you're studying your word, you're praying, you're fasting, you're getting deliverance, you're doing it all. And then boom, the attack comes. You know what I'm saying? And I think what people miss is they mistake the training for the mission almost. Like a lot of people, it, and I'm giving the analogy of if you were in combat, you know what I'm saying, where you're out there training, and in your mind you feel like, hey, you've accomplished the mission, but no, the training is preparing you for the mission, and the mission is going to require, you know, all your training plus your effort. You understand what I'm saying? And we're going to get into this, but I I don't think people have that realization. Uh, okay, you're praising, you're worshiping, you're studying, you're fasting. You know, you're doing all these things. Okay, you're that the analogy to that would almost be like training, but what do you do when you're in the situation that calls on all that training? You know what I'm saying? What do you do when you're in that emotionally charged situation you might be in, or whatever it might be? Uh, it might be uh, a diet thing where you're eating the way you're not supposed to. Might be you might be angry with somebody. It might be an urge, a desire. You know, it could, whatever it is. How are you reacting to that? And one of the things they were talking about with this training, and I think now I'm thinking back to a movie I saw, Saving Private Ryan and Band of Brothers, and they were interviewing these people, and they were like, man, some of the toughest guys, some of the most some of the people who are the most successful in the basic training phase, when they had to uh, invade the beaches of Normandy, and they had to go out into that, some of those people just locked up and froze up and just couldn't hack it. You know what I'm saying? And then other people were able to click into something and keep moving and pressing through. You know what I'm saying? So it's it goes to the question, what do you do? How do you react when you're under fire? Okay? How do you react when you're under that spiritual fire? When the proverbial spiritual bullets are flying, how are you reacting? Do you go back to your old ways? You know what I'm saying? To your old behaviors, to your deeply ingrained carnal behaviors? Or have you died to self? You know? It's like that saying, uh, I forget who said it, but he talks about the boy must die so the man can live. Have you just have you died? Have you killed? Have you buried your carnal nature? Have you died to self so that you can live spiritually. And, I'm saying I wouldn't be talking about this if I didn't see it. I see it in myself. I get in situations sometimes, and it's like that video I did a while back. Everybody wants to be spiritual until it's time to be spiritual. Because a lot of people, when I say everybody wants to be spiritual, they think of, oh, hallelujah, and all this, oh, spiritual, oh, holy is thou, and all that stuff. Okay, hey, that's good. That's easy to do. It feels good, all that. I get you. But how are you behaving and reacting when the shit hits the fan in these charged situations that life can just set in your lap? How do you react to them? How do you react when you're under fire in these situations? That's a question you need to ask yourself. And in asking yourself those questions, that is how you're going to identify where you need to grow. Okay? Now, what I talked about here is how to fight the good fight. And, I talked about, we always talk about battle and combat and warfare and fighting. You know what I'm saying? And why do we use these analogies, battles, fighting? If you watch UFC, I like watching UFC. I like listening to the interviews of warriors, like um, uh, people who were like SEALs and Navy SEALs and just elite special operations people. Listen to their mindset, because there's so many analogies, and it just ties so much into the word and into this spiritual warfare that we are in. Okay, it's just so relevant. I could get way more watching a Sean Ryan show where he's interviewing a Navy SEAL or some special operations person. I could get way more out of that than I can out of most so-called Bible teachings that might be out there, because it's just so much that directly ties in to the word and to this spiritual warfare that we live in. Okay. So we're going to talk about some of the realities, and make comparisons to warfare, actual warfare, battling, and all that stuff, and and related to spiritual warfare, to overcoming strongholds you might have in yourself, and the mindset you have to have with that. So, what are some of the parallels between battle, warfare, fighting, and the challenges you might face in your life? Okay. Uh, One of them is facing fear. Facing fear. This is a big one. That spirit of fear. That spirit that makes you make excuses. It's like fear is tied to pride, and pride is tied to fear. Fear of humiliation, of being humiliated, and just that feeling that comes up where you're just trying to run from not being humiliated. But most time, humiliation is the best medicine you could get, because it brings humility. It will make you humble, because the Most High don't like pride. So that fear is a big thing. Okay. What's another one? Strategy. You got to strategize in warfare. You got to, but if you're fearful and you're overcome with fear, you're not going to be able to look at what you need to look at to come up with a strategy to fight it. So Satan could keep you keep a spirit of fear on you or a spirit of pride, then there's no way you can strategize, because success requires planning. It requires tactics and tactical thinking. So how are you going to strategize if you can't see what you need to strategize about? You see what I'm saying? Endurance, resilience, knowing, preparing, and just knowing, being prepared and understanding that, hey, this is going to require diligence over the long haul. I'm setting up camp. I'm here to stay. Again, if you're full of fear, you're going to just, you might just try something real fast or whatever. But when you stand up and be like, look, I'm standing on this thing. I'm fighting till this thing is through. This is a long-term campaign. You got to have endurance and resilience. When it comes to war and battling and combat, it's important to have support. I watch a lot of people, the bullets start flying, stuff start going down, stuff be going on, and what they say, when the going get tough, the staff stop talking. I watch a lot of people, man, they going through something, they just close in. The reason you know they're going through something is because you don't hear nothing from them anymore. Again, if you're going to be in combat, in war, you're going to need support. See, and the unique thing, the thing about fighting, the thing about warfare, the thing about being in a battle is one thing trying to destroy another, okay? And when you're in a battle, again, this is why I like watching UFC fights, and I like listening to UFC fighters talk. This is why I like listening to special operations people. I like listening to them talk, because you get more truth and more reality out of these warriors than you do out of so-called religious people and all that stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? But the thing about being in combat, being in war, fighting, is that it consumes everything. It takes everything you got. You know, I know, like, and I'm not a UFC fighter or anything like that, but I've been in fights. I've wrestled before, you know, not organized wrestling, just wrestling with people, though, seeing if you could beat them or whatever. And I mean, and it's amazing because the Bible says we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against spiritual weakness in high places. Look, there's a difference between wrestling and fighting or boxing. Like, wrestling is very intense. It takes, like, you're using every muscle in your body almost to the max, and there's no splits or breaks or nothing. You're just going, exerting energy. It's very intense. It's a very intense form of fighting, and when you're in a fight, when you're in a war, when you're in your battle, it takes everything you got, and you need support. Same thing when you're in spiritual warfare. You need support. You need your brothers and sisters. This is the time you need your brothers and sisters more than any other time you're going to need them. And what does Satan do to people? Close their mouth up. What's he doing? Getting you off to getting you off away from him. So he got you by yourself, unsupported. So that's another parallel of warfare, that warfare has, okay? Dealing with loss, when you're going to war, dealing with loss, dealing with losses that are going to happen. The word says he didn't come to bring cupcakes. He said he came to bring the sword. Christ said he came to turn mother against uh, brother, son against father, mother against daughter, all that. He didn't come to bring unity. He came to divide. There's going to be loss. But part of that strategizing is you have to focus on what is the mission. What is the objective? Why? Why is this the objective? And you have to know that through and through. So that when you enter into combat, so that you're not confused of what you're doing. Okay? Because if this is the objective and that's not, hey, that might have to get cut off. Whether it's a person, place, thing, or mindset, whatever it is, there's going to be loss. Okay? Let's see. High stakes decisions. Again, goes back to you're going to have to make decisions, and think, hey, is this benefiting me? Is it not? Does this need to be here? Is keeping this around, is that going to take away from the objective, whatever the objective is? Resource management. I would say in spiritual warfare, that one of the resources might be time, making sure you're getting that word in. Make sure you're managing your resource of time, and attention is a big one. Making sure you have your attention focused on stuff, rearming yourself spiritually and mentally through your eye gate and ear gate, to make sure you're getting the proper resources in so that you can continue waging this war, this spiritual war. You see what I'm saying? Resource management. Facing oppositions. Facing oppositions. Again, this is a big one. A lot of people are docile, and whatever it is they need to face, people, places, things, mindsets. But the main opposition you got to face is yourself, your carnal nature. This is a hard one. This is the one right here. This is probably the biggest one. Like people facing themselves and actually coming to the realization that certain aspects of them don't line up with this word and need to go or be changed or be confronted. Oh, this is a big one. Because people have been so deeply ingrained in doing certain things, having certain mindsets, a lot of times they're not even aware of it, okay? And then again, we talked about this a little bit earlier, is what is victory? What is the objective? And what needs to happen for there to be victory? Not understanding though that this is an ongoing war. This is an ongoing battle. You know what I'm saying? So you might win the battle, but remember you're in a war, okay? So let's read some Bible verses. I have fought a good fight. I have finished my course. I have kept the faith. Okay, that's one. Let me get another one. Another one of my favorite ones, similar to Joshua 1. We'll read that too, but this the Most High talking. He says, "Be strong and of good courage. Fear not, nor be afraid of them, for the Lord thy God, he it is that goeth with thee. He will not fail thee nor forsake thee." He didn't say he's going to go for you. He's going with you. Okay. I like Joshua chapter 1, verse 9. Have not I commanded thee, be strong and of good courage. Be not afraid, neither be thou dismayed, for the Lord thy God is with thee whithersoever thou goest. Okay? And if you read that whole chapter there, it's a very it's a good example, it's a good analogy of how the Most High works, how he blesses, because a blessing he was going to give Joshua, he had to fight for it. He had to put work in, but he was going to get it. It wasn't just going to come to him effortlessly or just doing some feel good stuff that makes him feel good. No, he had to get out there with discipline. There was bloodshed and go to war and earn that blessing, do his part to receive that blessing and believe Yah for it. Have that faith. Okay? But what does the word say? Faith without works is dead. It don't just magically happen with faith. If you have faith or if you believe something, you're going to take action on it and do what you need to do. Psalms 46:1. God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble. Okay? Help in trouble. Okay? And I'm just reiterating, he doesn't do it for you. Okay? Philippians. And then Philippians chapter 4:13. I can do all things, right? So I can do all things. So I can do it through Christ who strengthens me. Christ will strengthen me. He's going to be a resource in these times of war. He will strengthen me, but he's not going to do it for me. You're going to have to gird up and get in the trenches. Okay. And now we're going to read Romans chapter 5, verse 3 through 5. And it says, and not only so, but we glory in tribulations also. Okay? Now listen, because you remember what I was talking about earlier. What I was saying earlier is that with tribulations or difficult times, that's how you're going to know who's spiritual and who's not. Okay? So, let's see. It says, and not only so, but we glory in tribulations also, knowing that tribulation worketh patience, and patience experience, and experience hope, and hope maketh not ashamed, because the love of God is shed abroad in our hearts by the Holy Ghost, which is given unto us. Okay? So, in times of tribulation, all right, let's see. Okay. My brethren, count it all joy when you fall into diverse temptations, knowing this, that the trying of your faith worketh patience. But let patience have her perfect work, that ye may be perfect and in and entire, wanting nothing. Okay. And then you have Sirach chapter 2, verse 4, which this is another one of my favorite ones. Whatsoever is brought upon thee, take cheerfully, and be patient when thou art changed to a low estate. For gold is tried in the fire, and acceptable men in the furnace of adversity. You see what I'm saying? So, you know, that's what it is. You got to have you have to have a temperament. You have to be tempered to have that type of response in trying times. And another way of saying is, when you're going through a tough situation, you should it should be like a knee-jerk reaction where you cling to the Most High and his ways and his guidance and his tools and what he has laid out: prayer, fasting, seeking him, that's studying his word, and in facing what you need to stand up against. Let's see. All right, so I see some of y'all in the comments. Shalom to you. See Brother Marlon there. Aaron, shalom. Maggie, shalom. Marco, shalom to your brother. I can't pronounce this one name, but it says, bless you, Brother Michael. Thank you for repairing my car at the feast. Okay. I'm not sure whose car. I repaired a couple cars at the feast, and we used it for a teaching moment too. Because we was getting some of them brothers a lot. The brothers learned a lot up there at the feast. So, let's see. All right, shalom to you. Shalom, sis. Good to see you in there. Cletus, shalom to you. Good to see you in there. I saw somebody was in here from Kenya too. Yeah, here it is, Maggie. Shalom from Kenya. Hallelujah. Shalom, Jessica. Shalom to you. Shalom. See Brother Enoch in there. Brother Enoch is part of our assembly right here in Nashville. It was good to see y'all. Good to see everybody in here. I'm trying to get at you can see I'm trying to get on here more often. I meant to get on here yesterday, but like I said, I got a lot going on. Good stuff. We just working diligently, and but I'm gonna be on here. Try to be on here more often. But with that said, I appreciate all y'all tuning in. And like I said, the purpose of this lesson was teaching brothers and sisters how to fight the good fight and not to deceive yourself into thinking you're fighting where you're mentally ascending to the point, oh yeah, I'm putting up a fight. No, it's like fighting the good fight is like resisting, standing up against things, even though you absolutely want to do this thing and it's exactly what you want to do, but for the mission's sake, you're not doing it. We're going to go into this more because I'm going to do another lesson. It's going to closely tie into this lesson, and it's going to be about dying to self. So That will be out soon. All right, with that said, I'm Michael Israel. You're watching Spiritual Combat. Shalom, shalom.